directors and all the participants. I am Iman Aziz, President Society for Environmental Actions, Lahore College for Women University.
And I am Arifa Shafkat, PhD Scholar, Department of Environmental Science, LCWU. It is our great pleasure to welcome you all to this two-day international workshop on climate change impacts on glaciers, rivers and the ocean.
As we all know that climate change is one of the most significant challenges facing our planet today, and its impact on the water resources are profound. Glaciers, rivers and oceans, all of them are being affected, with potentially catastrophic consequences for human society and the environment.
So this workshop is an opportunity to explore these issues in depth, to share knowledge and to build new networks and partnerships. We are delighted to have an outstanding lineup of speakers and experts who will be sharing the insights and expertise on a range of topics, including but not limited to climate modeling, water resource management and sustainable development. So thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to a productive and enlightening two-day discussion and exchange session.
Starting the proceedings of the workshop with the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most beneficent, I would like to invite on stage Sadia Alam for recitation of Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وهو الذي يرسل الرياح بشرا بين يدي رحمته حتى إذا أقلت سحابا ثقالا سقناه لبلد ميت فأنزلنا به الماء فأخرجنا به من كل الثمرات كذلك نخرج الموتى لعلكم تذكرون صدق الله العظيم. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and the most merciful. And it is He who sends the winds as good tidings before His mercy, rainfall until. When they have carried heavy rain clouds, we drive them to a dead land. And we send down rain therein and bring forth thereby some of all the fruits. Thus will we bring forth the dead. Perhaps you may be reminded. शुरू अल्लाह के नाम से जो बड़ा मेहरबान निहायत रहम करने वाला है, और वही तो है जो अपनी रहमत यानी मीर से पहले हवाओं को खुशखबरी बनाकर भेजता है, यहाँ तक कि जब वो भारी भारी बादलों को उठा लाती है तो हम इसको एक मरी हुई बस्ती की तरफ हाँक देते हैं, फिर बादल से मीर बरसाते हैं, फिर मीर से हर तरह के फल पैदा करते हैं, और इसी तरह हम मुर्दा को जिंदा करके बाहर निकालेंगे। ये आयात इसलिए बयान की जाती हैं ताकि तुम नसीहत पकड़ो। वमा अलैना इल्लल बलागुल मुबीन।
Jazakallah. Now I would request you all to kindly rise for national anthem.
warm welcome to our guests who have come all the way from USA for this workshop. Welcome, sirs and ma'ams, to a country through which the river Indus flows, along the banks of which once flourished the Indus Valley civilization, a country home to 7,200 known glaciers, a country with some of the highest peaks in the world in the Karakoram, Himalaya and Hindu Kush ranges. Pakistan, the land of hospitality, various beautiful cultures and amazing biodiversity. Welcome. We would now like to present a documentary on water resources of Pakistan prepared by students of Environmental Science Department, LCWU.
The Glacier is a 67-kilometer long situated in Karakoram mountain range in Shigar district of Pakistan. It's the world's third longest glacier outside the polar regions. Kyogalisa Glacier, situated in Karakoram range in Gilgit-Baltistan, lies near the Baltoro Glacier. Pakistan is home to several beautiful lakes that attract tourists from all over the world. These lakes are located in various parts of the country, including the northern mountain ranges and central highlands and the southern coastal areas. Some of the major lakes of Pakistan are Shirsar Lake, located in Bearsai National Park in Gilgit-Baltistan. It is one of the highest altitude lakes in the world, and its crystal clear waters are surrounded by stunning mountain scenery. Kalti Lake is situated in Gilgit-Baltistan, having elevation of 2,217 meters from sea level. Takhtu Lake is situated in Kohistan, KBK, and the highest lake in the region in 14,046 meters. Pakistan coastline about 1,046 kilometers long, bifurcated in two parts, Sindh coast and Makhan coast, which serve economic benefits to the country and contribute to 20% of the GDP. Interestingly, Pakistan has around 150 dams spread across all the provinces. These dams are not only the source of water and electricity, but they also act as perfect vacationing spot. Pakistan is a developing country where sooner or later country faces water scarcity issues, so dams protect country from these issues. The Bila Dam is situated in KBK Haripur district and built over river Indus. This dam is the world's largest fill-type dam, having height of 143.26 meters from sea level. In Pakistan, there are several rivers, but the Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi and Satluj are the most significant ones. Chenab River is extensively used in Pakistan for irrigation purposes, and average discharge is 977 cubic meters per second and its length is 1200 kilometers. River Ravi is one of the tributaries of Indus River. Its length is 720 kilometers and average discharge is 267.5 cubic meters per second. Flow of the water resources has been disturbed by the catastrophic floods in recent years. Over 2.1 million people were left homeless because of the floods. These are the deadliest floods in Pakistan since 2010, when nearly 2,000 died in flooding, and the deadliest in the world since the 2020 South Asian floods. Around 10 to 12% of Pakistan was flooded. The total area of standing floodwaters peaked between July and August at approximately 32,800 square miles. Agricultural fields were also devastated by the flooding. The floods affected 33 million people in Pakistan and destroyed 8,97,949 houses, and 11,64,270 livestock have been killed, most of them in the province of Balochistan, while destruction to 13,000 kilometers of roads and 439 bridges has impeded access across flood-affected areas. Over 22,000 schools were damaged or being destroyed. There is a need to mitigate the climate change impacts on the water resources of Pakistan.
I would now like to extend a very warm welcome to our worthy Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza. Kindly, ma'am, join us on stage.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Sajid Mahmood Chauhan, Secretary, Environment Protection Department. Sir, kindly join us on stage. Dr. Sajid Rashid, Vice Chancellor, University of Okada, will be joining us shortly.
I would now like to invite Dean Faculty of Social Sciences, LCWU, Professor Dr. Afzal Chaudhary, to join us on stage. Now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Louis Owen, Head of Marine, Earth and Atmospheric Science Department, North Carolina State University. Dr. Lewis's research focuses on understanding the nature and dynamics of quaternary paleo-environmental change and landscape evolution, environmental geology and natural hazards along the active plate margins.
Now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Walter Robinson. Sir, kindly join us on stage. Dr. Walter is the co-director of Climate Change in Society program. His research addresses the large-scale dynamics of atmosphere in the context of changing climate.
I would now like to invite Professor Dr. Paul Liu. Professor Dr. Paul Liu's area of expertise includes late quaternary sea level changes and their paleoclimatic and paleo-environmental implications, flux and fate of river-derived sediments in the marginal sea, land-ocean interactions, near shore and offshore seafloor mapping. Thank you, sir.
Now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Carly Erin. Assistant Professor Dr. Carly Erin uses traditional and novel hydrochemistry applications to better understand Earth surface processes in polar, fluvial and coastal settings with a focus on local ecosystems and communities.
I would also like to invite Professor Dr. Stacey Zhang onto the stage. Dr. Stacey Zhang's research is focused around two main themes: how does global climate change affect fish communities and essential fish habitat, and what factors can enhance coastal ecosystem functions and restoration. I would also like to invite Ms. Lucia Mencher-Redner, a graduate student from NC State University.
Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Arfa Tahir, Chairperson, Environment Science Department, to join us on stage. Without a further ado, I would like to request Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, Lahore College for Women University, to share her insights and words of wisdom with us. Please join me in welcoming her with a round of applause.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Professor Louis Owen, his whole team, Secretary Environment from Punjab Government Environment Department, Dean's Director, Chairperson Arfa Tahir Sahiba, all the students and guests, Assalamu alaikum and a very warm good morning. It's an absolute honor to be part of this project and welcome our esteemed guests and experts in the area to be here in Lahore College for Women University. First of all, I must admire and congratulate Dr. Louis Owen for making the best selection for his project, because as has been mentioned by the students also earlier, that Pakistan, if you want to study glaciers and climate change, I don't think there is any country in the world which could be better placed to study climate change and glaciers, because this is the country which has the highest number of glaciers outside the poles. So, and notice it's just that we have the highest number of glaciers, but also, in fact, if you look at the geography of this country, probably this is the only country in the world which has the on one in the south touching the sea level, and on the other hand highest mountains in the world. So with that range of variation in the altitude, obviously comes the whole biodiversity and all sorts of variations in the environmental conditions also, which one must study if you are studying environment, and particularly with reference to climate change. So, and I'm not just appreciating his selection of the country, but I'm also appreciating his selection of the university as well, because if you want to particularly focus on women as environmentalists, which you must, because as we all say that you educate a man, you educate a man, you educate a woman, you educate a generation. So if you want to educate women, obviously that is how you educate your next generations. And for selecting a women institution, and particularly Lahore College Women University, which is the largest women university and the oldest public sector institution for higher education of women. In fact, if I share a little bit of history of this institution, so it started in 1922 as an intermediate college for girls in this part of the world. Obviously, it was not Pakistan at that time, it was subcontinent as one unit. And obviously, it has produced thousands and thousands of graduates who are serving in various institutions, not just within Pakistan, but across the world. And in 2002, looking at the progress of this institution and its contribution, its status was elevated to the university level. So we have completed 20 years as university and 100 years as an institution last year. We actually celebrated centenary last year for the establishment of this institution. And in these 100 years, obviously, there are lots of women who have been empowered through education, and they are contributing in our society. So I feel that for this project, selecting this institution is the best choice one could ever make to empower women and to make them specialists in environment studies. And coming to the university, if I look at the environmental sciences department, it is certainly, I can say with confidence, one of the best department of this institution. And Dr. Arifa Tahir is leading this department nowadays, who's very active, not just for developing research collaborations, but also very actively involved in various activities of awareness particularly. So we come to know about various seminars, workshops, conferences, or even awareness walks being organized in the university, as well as in collaborating with various other institutions, government as well as non-government institutions. In fact, this institution has several collaborations with various institutions of USA. Our gender study department also has a project going on with George Washington University. In fact, we are also part of a big project but funded by USID. It's called HASA, it's Higher Education Strengthening Program, in which there are about 15 universities of Pakistan part of it, and our institution is certainly one of them. And through that program, which is in collaboration with University of Utah and University of Alabama, and there are a couple of other institutions, and they are helping us to strengthen our faculty as well as to sort of, revise our curriculum and teaching skills, and several other capacity building workshops are going on. And one of the objectives of that program is actually women leadership. And in that women leadership training last year, Dr. Arifa Tahir was nominated by this university, and she visited University of Utah. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that we have the right environment, we have the right people, and I'm very confident that this project will be a very successful project, and it will lead to several long-term collaborations in future as well for research purpose, and definitely it would be a very important sort of step towards restoring environment of Pakistan, which we very much need, because as you all know that particularly in the last couple of years, we have seen the disasters due to the very reason we are gathered here, the climate change and the impact it has on our environment. And it's like something which we must understand, that on one hand our glaciers are being melted and we are having floods, and on the other hand, in fact, we face drought. So, it's extreme weather which are affecting our everyday life, the life of every person in the country, particularly agriculture, the farmers and so on. So, therefore, I think that this sort of project project is not just a research collaboration, but it is sort of a national cause. And that is what we need at the moment, that we need to develop not just the research collaborations, but in general awareness about how every person in this country need to work and think about that where we are going to take this country in future if we do not be aware of our responsibilities and we do what needs to be done to resist that the disasters which we are facing nowadays because of these issues. So therefore, I'm so very glad and thankful to our team for visiting us, and I hope very best of luck to the organizers for organizing this event, and I really hope that we will have very productive these couple of days in which this activity is going to go on, as well as I look forward to have a very productive collaboration throughout this project and even after that. So thank you very much for joining us and wish you all best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your inspirational talk. Now I would like to invite our chief guest, Dr. Sajid Mahmood Chauhan, Secretary, Environment Protection Department, for his remarks.
In the shortest span of time, they have made their case very beautifully. And they have shown all the risk areas starting from Skardu to the seashores of Pakistan. So I will appreciate their efforts. And it shows that they have grasp of the knowledge of environmental sciences under their very professional faculty. So appreciation and thanks to faculty as well. Respected audience, I would like to say a few things about the practical measures which we are taking as Environment Protection Department, and at the same time I would highlight and sensitize you all about the sensitivity of environmental degradation. We are amongst top 10 worstly affected nations on the earth which are being hit by the adverse effect of climate change. At the same time, we were most, I can say, desensitized people on the earth vis-a-vis environment is concerned. But until I can say that 4 or 5 years back, we were not sensitive enough, but we are sensitive now, and we are covering up that lag or which we ignored previously, and we are now making efforts to fill that gap or lacunas which we created due to our lapses. And I want to explain my case that in order to protect the environment of the Punjab, there is basically a three-pronged strategy. On the one side, there are certain legislations, rules, regulations, policies and strategies. On the other side, there are some gadgetaries, equipments, monitoring stations and enforcement vehicles and equipment. And on the third side is our passion and our strategy to deal with polluters and the pollution and the emissions. Basically, there were lapses on all three sides. We are having deficit policies, rules, regulations, which we are covering fast. And on the 29th of March this year, we have been able to get approved our clean air policy for the first time in Punjab. At the same time, we have got approved our plastic management strategy for the first time in Punjab. We are also bringing in different legislations like smoke ordinance, smoke rules. We are trying to fill this gap of legislation and the policies, and very fastly and very rapidly. On the other side, as I have already explained, there is a gap of gadgetry or systems to monitor over environmental pollution. On that front, we are procuring over 31 monitoring stations which will be installed throughout the Punjab, and 10 will be procured by September of this year. We have placed orders. For the rest of the equipments, those are in the process of procurement. The third side is the enforcement side, and we are focusing, basically we are working on all three fronts simultaneously to cover up that lag which I have already explained. On the enforcement side, we want to enforce and implement all the rules, regulations. We want to curb the pollution, but there is a fine balance and a delicate difference that at the same time we want to ensure that industry is running, and we just don't want to stop their functioning. Rather, it is easy to control population by stopping their functions, by sealing them, by shutting them down, by closing them. But we want to sensitize them, the industries and the pollutants, that they should continue to their business while installing emission control system. And on the brick kiln side, they should convert to zigzag technology, and if they are owners or are dealing with the businesses of the public transport, they should install the proper emission system in their vehicles, and they should bring proper vehicles on the road. So there is a delicate balance, fine balance, while we are implementing or enforcing over environmental law, that we want to keep these economic activities going on, and at the same time we want to enforce those rules and regulations. These were the three-pronged strategy which we are adopting as Environment Protection Department. At the same time, we are focusing on the awareness, because the awareness is the essence by which we will be creating a society with agenda of environment as number one priority of theirs. We want that environment is number one agenda on the society or on the community in Punjab specifically, and in the Pakistan generally. For that purpose, we are developing linkages with the university academia, whether it's on the university side or school side or colleges side, who are developing linkages with the multinational organizations, with the international organizations, and we are working very fastly on that front as well. So I will request academia that we are ready to not only cooperate, but we are anxiously waiting for their guidance and their advice, so that we can implement and we can face challenges of environment protection in the Punjab. And I would like to give a suggestion that we should establish a panel of environmental experts with the help of academia, a standing permanent panel of experts which should continuously advise Department of Environment Protection on honorary basis, and for that we will work with the chairperson of the Environment Protection Department. And I also voluntarily request you that you should send your students for attachment with Environment Protection Department, so that they have first-hand knowledge of what is going on in the Punjab in the field of environment protection. With these remarks, I am thankful again for inviting me on this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Sajid Rashid, Vice Chancellor, University of Bukhara, has just joined us. Thank you, sir.
I would now like to invite Director General, EPD Punjab, Ms. Nadia Saqib. Please, ma'am, join us on stage. Moving forward, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Arafat Tahir, Chairperson, Environmental Science Department, LCWU, to provide us with the project digest. Please have a big round of applause for Professor Dr. Arafat Tahir.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Before I give a brief overview of the project, very warm welcome to our distinguished guest who came all the way from the US. We are honored with the presence of Secretary Environment, our Worthy Vice Chancellor, Okara University, Director General EPD, Chairpersons, Deans from Islamic International University, Chairpersons from Punjab University, College, Chairpersons from Lahore College for Women University, my colleagues, dear students, welcome to this very important international workshop on impact of climate change on our water resources. Very warm welcome. I especially welcome our special guests from other provinces, from Balochistan, Lasbela University and Karachi University. Most welcome. Thank you so much. The motivation behind this workshop was the fact that Pakistan being on the front line of climate change. Recently, we have faced the climate catastrophe in the form of the largest catastrophe in the form of flooding that is seen across the south and north of the country. And it is apparent from the damage that Pakistan needs significant assistance from the global community in the form of innovative ideas and solutions on how can we build climate adaptive future. To address some of these issues, we have gathered the world thought leaders today, including Professor Dr. Yusovan from North Carolina University, Professor Dr. Paul, Professor Dr. Walter Robinson, Dr. Carly Arendich, Dr. Stacy Zhang, and our fresh PhD students, Lucia, Engineer Zafar Iqbal Vattu, Dr. Abdullah Yasser, Professor Dr. Irfan Khan, Dr. Aslam Buzar, and Vice Chancellor Okara University, Dr. Sajid Rashid, who have very extensive research experience in climate change. Today's workshop is a part of a project developing the next generation of female environmentalists funded by the US Department of State. I would like to express my deepest appreciation for the initiative of US mission to Pakistan to train female environmentalists in Pakistan. This platform will definitely boost our capacity to adopt and mitigate the challenges of climate and environment. Under this project, a one-year-long study abroad opportunity is available for 2 female students from Lahore College Women University in the Department of Marine Earth and Atmospheric Science at North Carolina University in the USA. Selected students will receive financial support and enroll in the master's program in climate change and society. This may lead to doctoral program, and the students will receive travel grants and accommodation grants. And the University of North Carolina will bear their tuition fees and they give them stipends. Moreover, the University of North Carolina will host every year 30 Pakistani students and faculty members in NC State University to train them in different fields of climate change and environmental science. Correspondingly, the US scientists will visit every year in Pakistan for field courses, for curriculum development and for lab courses. These opportunities will help Pakistani universities and NC State reevaluate the current environmental major teaching and research programs, strengthen each other's curriculum development and increase collaborative research, virtual teaching exchanges, professional development for women faculty and faculty and student exchanges. Under this project, We have developed Pakistan Women University Climate Change Consortium, including Lahore College for Women University, Fatma Jannah Women University, and FTK University, Quetta. Other universities like Rasvela University and Dehliya University, Karachi are members, but Lahore College for Women University has a leading role in this project. There are compelling reasons that why we need training of women. Climate action requires 100% of population, and we as women are 50% of the population. The women are almost 50% of the agriculture labor force. The women have key role in the development of climate resilient community. Being social norms, the women, this is the responsibility in our society to collect fuel for the family, to collect water for the family, to arrange food for the family and feed for animals. So it is very important that we strengthen and give skills to women so that he can tolerate the climate change disasters. When disasters come, women are the first responders to these disasters. So we have to train our women folk, our girls. Under this project, we will give training and skills to young women and girls so that they become women leaders. Almost 40% of our graduates are girls. But when come to climate change, advocacy, policy making, conversation, they left out. There is no gender equality. Women did not participate in climate change discussions. So we want this project will bring gender equality and social inclusion in policy making. And we hope that our students will take part actively in all activities of this project by empowering women with the knowledge and skill to become environmental leaders. Once again, welcome to all of you and thank you for your participation and commitment to the important cause of ensuring the sustainable future of Pakistan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for providing us with details of the project.
Now, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Lewis Owen, Head of Marine Earth and Atmospheric Science Department, North Carolina State University, for a keynote address on Earth surface processes and landscape evolution in the Himalayas and Karakoram, a framework for sustainable development and geohazard mitigation. Please welcome Professor Dr. Lewis Owen with a big round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning to take the opportunity to talk about a framework for sustainable development and geohazard mitigation from a perspective of a geoscientist. I'm a geologist by training, and I've had the opportunity to work in the Himalayas and adjacent mountains for many decades. And I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the projects that we've been taking part in. Before I do, I'd like to thank Professor Arifa for where is she? She's down there. Thank you very much for organising this event, and Vice Chancellor, thank you for hosting us. What I'd like to do in the next 40 minutes or so is introduce quaternary geology and geomorphology. Quaternary geology is the study of the geology over the last 2.6 million years, the ice age we're in right now. And I want to present a framework for quaternary geology and geomorphology in the Himalayas and the Karakoram, and discuss how we can use quaternary geology and geomorphology for sustainable development and geohazard mitigation. And the projects I'll talk about are a combination of many different projects, and I have to acknowledge a whole range of folks from right across different areas of the Himalayas and Tibet and from the West, all involved in these various projects over many decades. And the people in blue here are students who have done PhDs and master's theses on these projects. And I'd like to acknowledge funding from the National Science Foundation, National Geographic, and also funding right now from the US State Department, the US Mission to Pakistan for funding this meeting. I'd also like to thank the people of the northern areas
When I was 21 years old, I started a PhD project looking at terraces, uplift and climate change in the Karakoram Mountains. This was a collaboration between the University of Peshawar, so Professor Kazim Jan was my advisor here in Pakistan, and between the University of Leicester in the UK, where a whole range of professors were interacting with Pakistani scientists to understand the evolution of the Himalayas. And this was a consequence of the Karakoram Highway just being open and allowing us to go into these areas and look at modern geology and develop some of the early frameworks for understanding how mountain ranges develop. So as a young graduate student, I had this immense opportunity to work in these areas and had the hospitality of the people of Baltistan, Gilgit, Hunza. I ate far too many apricots, but it was an absolutely wonderful time working in the mountains and exploring these areas and learning about the geology and the cultures of this region. So what I do as a geologist is I look at a landscape like this and I ask, what are the factors that shape landscapes? Like this is Ascoli on the way up to the Baltoro Glacier on the route to K2. And you see these vast terraces, vast steep slopes, the highest topographies on our planet. And what shapes these? And how are these landscapes changing naturally and because of human influence? So when you look at a landscape like this, you see factors such as tectonics. India is moving into Eurasia at a rate of about 50 millimeters a year, causing the uplift of the Himalaya in Tibet. The mountains are being weathered. There are glacial processes shaping these landscapes. The uplift creates higher topography for more glaciers. We have factors such as landslides, mass movement. We have the rivers carving down from these landscapes. We have soils being developed. And then we have the human influence on these landscapes. And all these processes are interactive. And so as a quaternary geologist, I look at the landscapes from the shape of the landforms. I do geomorphology, sedimentology, look at the sediments that are produced by the erosion of these landscapes. And I also do geochronology. We want to put time frames on when did these landforms form, what are the rates of the processes, when did these processes take place, when did the terraces form, and how are they going to change in the future. So in essence, what we tried to do in terms of quaternary geology and geomorphology is we tried to define the shapes, the magnitudes of each of these little boxes. So climate, what's the role of climate? How much erosion is taking place? What's the topography? And the tectonics. And each of these have their own aspects. Climate is precipitation, temperature. We have changes in atmospheric circulations. Climate affects erosion, so these arrows link to this. Erosion can affect climate because as rock weathers away, it draws down carbon dioxide, leading to changes in atmospheric CO2. Topography influences climate. We have the rain shadow because of the uplift of the Himalayas. We have the monsoon because of the uplift of the Himalayas in Tibet. So what we're trying to do is put numbers on these and look at how fast these happen. And so all these different projects we do take little parts of this interconnection and see how we can define the rates and magnitudes of change. And then of course as humans, we add to this. We change these processes. This region is important, as we already heard this morning, because it has the largest rivers in the world, the largest glaciers, the greatest number of glaciers outside the polar regions. The region itself has a profound effect on global climate as well as regional climate. We have the densest populations in our planet living against the Himalayas in Tibet. And it's culturally and ecologically very diverse. This is a photograph taken by an astronaut from the space shuttle showing Mount Everest, the Indo-Gangetic Plain, and Tibet. And you can see here the changes from the very lush green areas of the Indo-Gangetic Plain up into the high Himalayas and the more arid central parts of Tibet. So we have this huge climatic gradient, this precipitation gradient. We decrease the precipitation as we go into the mountains, into the central parts of Tibet. And then we have the east-west precipitation gradient too. Wetter in the east, getting progressively drier to the west. And then the collision of Indonesia producing this topography. The average elevation of the Himalayas in Tibet are 5,000 meters above sea level. And if we look at the tectonics, here we are in northern Pakistan. We have major faults that run across this area, like the main boundary thrust. These are faults that can generate earthquakes of magnitude of 9, the great earthquakes. And we've seen many earthquakes in the last few decades, not as large as that, but having devastating effects, such as the 2005 Kashmir earthquake that displaced 1 million people and resulted in something like 70,000 fatalities. So we're trying to understand how these faults move over time, which faults are most active, and how the mountains evolve and change over geologic time. So if we look at the Himalayas, it's incredibly diverse. This is a geologic section through the Himalayan Tibetan region. We go from the forelands into the mountains, the lowlands, the Sewaliks, the Lesser Himalaya, Greater Himalayas, into Khorasan, Karakoram, and into Tibet. And you can see the range of environments. But the mountains themselves influence the other areas. We have the transfer of sediment from the mountain regions into the forelands, with increasing sedimentation in areas like dams. We have the influence of the mountains building progressively to the south as the mountains grow laterally, in areas where you have major earthquakes such as the boundary areas adjacent to where we are right now. This region has also led to major changes in our views of geology. Nanga Parbat was significant in leading to a concept called a tectonic aneurysm. It's the most rapidly rising mountain in the world, and it's led to ideas of how the crust is influenced by surface processes, how by rivers down-cutting those mountains we get accelerated erosion. Or as glaciers cut deep into valleys, they take away the rock, and the crust rebounds, creating higher topographies. Lakes build up behind moraines or glaciers, and that leads to increased sedimentation in the mountains, protecting landscapes. And then we have rapid change of landforms as a consequence of climate change. We call this paraglaciation. So when glaciers retreat, the landscapes respond, they react. This is an example here, in fact, from northern India, where this landform, the glacier retreated back, left this landform, and it was cut into by this river, creating a new fan in a very rapid, short period of time. So here we have this very diverse topography. We have diverse climate. This is the precipitation, annual precipitation averaged here for just a little over a decade. And it shows the high precipitation in the Greater Himalayas, the Lesser Himalayas, this dual band, and the precipitation gradient going into the mountains. And we're influenced by two major climatic forces. The mid-latitude westerlies bringing moisture from the Caspian Black Sea, dumping it on the Karakoram in the summer, in the winter rather, and then the summer monsoon bringing moisture on the Greater Himalayas during the summer. So I was really interested in how these two climatic systems drive surface processes, drive geologic processes. I already said it's the most glaciated region outside the polar realms, and the glacial system is really important for driving the other processes, driving the hydrology, driving sediment transfer from these mountains. So much of what I've done in the last few decades is look at the glacial system and try and understand how that influences these landscapes. And I mentioned earlier we're in an ice age. So for the last 2.5 million years or so, we've had the growth of large ice sheets in the northern hemisphere, across North America, across Eurasia. And those have come and gone. And they've come and gone because of changes in the Earth's orbital parameters. And this little diagram here shows the last 450,000 years. And this is a very famous curve here of oxygen isotope variability over the last 450,000 years. And it shows we go from times when we have more changes in oxygen isotope 18 to less. So the crux of this is where you see the pink band. These are interglacial times, times like we're in today, warm times, that last about 10,000 years. We entered the last warm time about 10,000 years ago. So we should be going back into a cold time. The blue shows the cold periods, the glacial times. So much of the last 2.5 million years, we've been in glacial times. This time is a little bit different. 10% of that time we're in interglacials. And that's driven by changes, I say, in the Earth's orbital parameters, and that also changes the monsoon intensity. So up here we have insolation change in the monsoon intensity. So the monsoon has come and gone in its strength over that period, driven by natural fluctuations. So I'm really interested in how glaciers have responded to these natural fluctuations and how they're going to respond in the future. And then we look at the last 20,000 years, and the last 20,000 years, we came out of the last glacial literally in about 2 decades. We came out of a glacial time into the warm time. Here's the jump, here. And over the last 10,000 years, climate's been relatively stable, although we've had periods of rapid fluctuation, these grey bands. So glaciers have fluctuated and responded, and the hydrological cycles have responded as well on those timescales. So we want to examine those natural processes to understand how we can tease out what's natural from what's human. And then in the last few decades or so, we've seen rapid changes. And it's been proposed that we're in the new geologic era, the Anthropocene. We're now the major geologic force on our planet. And we've been debating, when do we really become the major force in changing our planet? And these little diagrams here show changes in CO2. This one here is from 20,000 years to present. See the big leap here, where we are right now? It also shows changes in temperature. And if we expand this up, this is over the last 10,000 years, this is over the last 1,000, and this is over the last couple of hundred years. And the crux of this is that naturally we should be seeing changes reflecting Earth's orbital parameters. But what we're seeing in the last couple of hundred years are these rapid changes in greenhouse gases that we all know about. And it's been proposed that the massive acceleration that we've had from that started around about 1960, 1950. So it's now been suggested that we should be in a geologic period that started just about 60 years ago. And that's the period that we're saying is the Great Acceleration. We've had major changes in Earth systems, major changes in the greenhouse gases, major changes in coastal regions. We've had major socio-economic changes, all interlinked. So we're that geologic agent. And then we've seen natural disasters, ever increasing. And here I put a little diagram together just highlighting some of those natural disasters. The flood from last year. This is the density of people living in the Indo-Gangetic Plain and adjacent Himalayas, up to 10,000 per square kilometre. We've had major earthquakes in the last couple of hundred years that have been absolutely devastating. Major landslides. So we're seeing increasing natural disasters. And I've just put here from Texas to North Carolina, where we're from, Raleigh, just showing the population here. Nowhere near is the vast numbers of people here in Asia that are affected by these processes. So what do we want to know? Well, we want to know what the extent of timing of glaciation is. We want to know the nature and timing and rates of erosion, sediment transfer, movement of sediment, and sediment deposition. We want to know how the mountains are growing, what the rates of movement on these faults are, how quickly the mountains are uplifting. We want to know the role of the extreme events in shaping these landscapes and shaping us. And what are the forcing factors for glaciation? Is it the monsoon? Is it the westerlies? And how does the glaciation affect other Earth surface processes and the landscapes? And then what's the human impact on those? So what our groups have been doing is been taking study areas, and these are some of the study areas in the black dots, across this region to look at the diversity of these changes and build up models. And look at how the monsoon and mid-latitude westerlies have affected glaciation and climate and surface processes. So how do we do this? We go in the field. This is a trip we had up into the Shigar Valley. We get much help from local people. These are porters from the Hushay Valley helping us carry supplies up to the Voltura Glacier. We map these areas. We do geomorphic mapping. We look at landforms. Here's some young kids from the Boldu Valley. These scratches here are marks of where a glacier was once in the past. We build up the geomorphology. This is the Gorkin Glacier, beautiful glacier. Doesn't look like a glacier. Here's the free ice up here, but it's covered in debris. The Karakoram Highway runs through here. And so we want to understand how the glaciers carry sediments, how they move sediments, and what happens when glaciers retreat, what are the landforms like. So we build up models that we call lithofacies models to define what the sediments are, or land systems models to look at the different interaction of different landforms. So this is a model I produced in my PhD work of the Gorkin Glacier, showing the different environments to understand ancient sediments as well as what's happening today. Here's a map we produced of the Skardu Basin. And once we produce those maps and we look at these landforms, we can start to get an idea of what the dominant processes are and how those processes have changed. Oops. There we go. And then we want to be able to put some time on these processes. And probably everybody in the room here knows about radiocarbon dating. We can take organic matter and date sediments with organic matter and to find the age. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of organic matter in many of these valleys. It gets swamped by the plastic sediment, by the sediment itself, or it decays. So we've been using two techniques called optically stimulated luminescence and cosmogenic dating, terrestrial cosmogenic nuclides. And we've been applying those to define the ages of these landforms. So we take a moraine like this one here, and we sample from different parts of the valley to define the age of when the moraine formed and when the glacier was there. So cosmogenic nuclide dating, this is a really nice technique. Here's a student collecting a sample here. We're all being bombarded at the moment by high energy neutrons, And those cause cosmogenic nuclides to form in our bodies. They form in rocks. Nuclides like C14 or beryllium-10, aluminum-26. We take beryllium-10, aluminum-26 from rocks. We know how fast they form in rock surfaces. So if we can count the number of atoms of beryllium-10, we can say what they're doing and then compare them. So if we go across the Himalaya, we have changes in the style of glaciers, a very long, active erosional glaciers in the greater Himalayas. We go more into the trans-Himalayas. The glaciers become colder. They don't erode as much. We have ice caps in the middle of the Tibetan Plateau. And glaciers are very varied. And this is some work one of my grad students did, looking at the different climatic regimes. And if you want to sort of statistically split glaciers up, we have about 5 in Asia, in Pakistan. And these are the catchments. These floods produce landforms. This is Tritral Valley, and this is Tereshmere, and this was glaciated. Big glacier came down this valley. We mapped out our sediments and landforms. The landforms that left behind got re-eroded to form these beautiful alluvial fans, terraces that are farmed, but those themselves have been cut into by erosional processes producing new forms. So on our dating, we want to understand when they occur and what the rates are. The other thing we can do with these dating techniques is to date benches. This is a bench of rock here. The river was once up at this level and it eroded that bench, left the rock behind. The river's now cut down. If we can date the age of that with cosmogenics, measure the height from the river, we can get an incision rate, how quickly the river's cut down. And we've been doing that for the Himalayas and Tibet. And what we find is that for landforms younger than about 10,000 years, or 11,500 years, we get very high incision rates. They're in the order of a couple of tens of millimeters. But those that are older, the incision rates are averaged out over a longer time period, but they're less. And what this represents is the transition from a glacial to non-glacial time, where we have an enhanced erosion. So as one would expect, as we see deglaciation happening in the Himalayas, we're going to see that happen ever increasingly. We can look at the ages of terraces, and this is a plot here of terraced ages. It goes from 30,000 years to 0, and the histogram basically shows the number of terraces that are dated. And the peaks of these histograms occur with peaks in monsoon intensity. So when the monsoon is intense, we get more fan development, as one would expect. We can get just average denudation rates for basins. So this is a study we did on the Baltoro Glacier, collecting sediment from the Baltoro Glacier, using beryllium-10, and getting erosion rates for these large faces, these rock faces around, telling us that these are eroding away at a rate of about 2 millimeters a year. So we can try and define how erosion varies differentially. And I've had a student work on that across the Himalayas, showing how different glacial environments are at different rates. And then we have the role of low magnitude, high frequency events. How important are those in shaping these landscapes as compared to the small, high frequency, lower events like just general weathering and erosion. This is Everest Base Camp, and in 2015, a group of Sherpas had come down from climbing Everest and camped at Everest Base Camp. They thought they were safe now. They'd gone through Khumbu Ice Fall, the most horrific part of the climb to get to the highest camp. And they were camped down here, and the Golka earthquake struck. And it caused a huge avalanche that came down and destroyed their village, killing about 70 of them. We've seen similar things in Pakistan. This is Balakot in 2005. This is what it looked like after the earthquake. This is what it was like before. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with the devastating effects of that earthquake. It also created huge numbers of landslides, like the Hatiambala landslide that encroached on 3 villages, killing about 700 people. This whole landslide here happened in about 60 seconds from the top to the bottom. The Pakistan Army were very clever in starting to build a chute across this landslide because a lake built up, and they were worried that the lake was going to catastrophically burst through this natural dam. It eventually did burst, but the effects were less because they released some of the water. We've been involved in mapping out where the landslides occur and what you might expect in terms of landslide susceptibility. This is Mustafarabad before the earthquake. Here's the landslides after the earthquake. The landslides continued for months on. This is a landslide susceptibility map we built for that area based on the observations that we did from the study of the earthquake. And these kind of maps can be extrapolated across the Himalaya so that we can have better knowledge of where the risk is, and better construction and protection against these high magnitude events. The landslides continue even after the earthquake, evolving over time, and so we've built up landslide inventories to understand the evolution of these landslides to protect the future development. They occur right through the Himalayas. Some of these are absolutely devastating. The Kashmir earthquake created many thousands of landslides. The Sichuan earthquake that happened in 2008 created, and I also get the number, but I think it was in the order of 100,000 landslides. So a landslide like this is prone to landsliding, be it triggered by earthquakes or monsoon activity. So when we look at the landscape, geomorphologists can read the landscape and see where there's been past landslides, and hopefully we can predict where the future landslides are using some very simple engineering principles. This is an ancient landslide in the Shigar Valley. These deposits here were formed about 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, and we were able to date those using these cosmogenic and luminescence dating methods. And across the Himalayas and Tibet, we start to date these big catastrophic landslides. Catastrophic landslides are those that have over 1 million cubic meters of debris. These landslides cluster in time. So this is 0 to 50,000 years. We see there's a cluster here in the early Holocene. There's a cluster around here. And these are representing times where we had enhanced monsoon. So with enhanced monsoon, we're going to get more landslide. And of course, as we've seen with extreme climate events that we're experiencing right now, landsliding is ever more prevalent. And extreme events such as the floods that you experience here in Pakistan. I'm interested mostly in the mountains. And so what's the effect in the mountains? These are some examples. This is Kalianath in northern India. And this was in 2010. We were working here, took a photo. We didn't even think that the Lake Cup Valley would be breached in 2013 of the cloudburst. It's sort of basically a big rainstorm that sat over the area for several days. The lake rose to its highest point, overspilled, and sent debris flows down valley. Some of you must have seen the footage of the Chamoli disaster in 2001. This was not a glacial lake outburst, it was an ice avalanche that came down into the river, causing devastating debris flows. Recognizing places that can happen is paramount in the sustainable development of these areas. So we go back to our landscapes. So geomorphologists, quaternary geologists read these landscapes. The landforms tell them what the dominant processes are. One thing we learn from geology is if it's happened in the past, it can happen in the future. The magnitude of these events in the past have been enormous. They're going to increase probably because of human influences. So we go back to our diagram. So what we've been doing is trying to quantify the amount of erosion, the amount of weathering, how the climate's changing, how climate influences glaciation, how tectonics affect these landscapes, and what the human influence is. And I proposed several years ago that the way to do this in mountain environments was to take an integrated approach to geomorphology, where you look at mass movement, you look at the stratigraphy, the record in the sediments, you use atmospheric science, atmospheric modeling, use glaciology and hydrological modeling, monitoring and measurements, and you look at landscape evolution so that we can have a holistic look and understanding of all these factors interact. And I said earlier, I'm mainly interested in the mountains because of my background, but these influences influence the intergangetic plain. They influence the delta environments in the oceans as we go from the mountains through the forelands into the oceans. And then if we want to do sustainable development, we need to be able to quantify the geology, understand the geology, characterize the topography, characterize the climate, and understand the nature and variability and complexities of climate change. I haven't talked about biogeography, but to understand vegetation changes as well. Define the role of geomorphic processes in shaping these landscapes. Define what the human influences are. And then use models to maybe extrapolate around areas and into areas we can't get to. And all that helps us to adjust and lead to sustainable development and hazard mitigation. So taking this holistic response, combining geologists, climatologists, hydrologists, social scientists, political scientists, economists, is critical to sustainable development. So what are the questions, big questions we want to ask in the Himalayas? Well, what do the mountains tell us about their future? They tell us about their future. We can look and we can learn from the records. And how do the geo-patterns on mountain surfaces arise? And what do they tell us about the processes? How do landscape influence, record climate and tectonics? They tell us about natural climate change. And how frequent do we get earthquakes, for example? And how do the biogeochemical reactors influence mountain landscapes? What are the transport laws that govern the evolution of mountains? How do mountain ecosystems and landscapes co-evolve together with people as well? And what controls mountain landscape resilience to change? Are the mountains going to be resilient to change or not? Some areas might, others might not. And how will these mountain surfaces evolve in the Anthropocene under us as the major geologic agent? And how can Earth surface science contribute to sustainable development in the mountain environments? So what's the way forward? Increased detailed mapping, GIS work, field work, combined remote sensing, improve our dating so we know when things happen and how fast they happened. Increased monitoring, enhanced monitoring of surfaces. And we're fortunate having lots of satellite-based monitoring we can utilize. And combine human, climate, glacial and surface modeling. And of course the most important is you, the future generation, in working to make these changes towards a sustainable environment. Well, thank you for listening to me this morning. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Any questions? We have time for questions? No? Okay. We're good? Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir, for your insightful talk. Now I would like to invite DG EPD Punjab, Ms. Nadia Saqib, for remarks. Please take the podium, ma'am.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. It is very heartening to come back to your alma mater after maybe, nearly 20 years. And I'm grateful to Dr. Saba for inviting us here. And thank you very much, Dr. Owen, for very informative, but I mean it was very difficult for me to understand most of the part, but that actually made me aware of where I stand. And the entire workshop and the design of the workshop was very impressive. I feel that shows the commitment of the developed world towards the impact that the climate change is going to have on the developing world, which is not a contributor as such to the causes of the prospective change. So there's not much that we at EPA can offer about it, but since climate change is a federal subject mainly and it's being dealt by the Ministry of Climate Change, so our emphasis is more on enforcement part, and I feel today that we are trying our best to gear towards more scientific understanding of where we stand in terms of environment and climate change. At present, I want to share with each one of you something that we are trying very hard to do. Mainly, we are having data about the greenhouse gas emissions and wastewater quality. It is secondary data. We aren't really satisfied. We're trying really hard to develop our own capacity, as Secretary Environment has already shared. We are trying to develop projects which develop our capacity to have primary data. We are trying very hard to strengthen our laboratories so that we can make better analysis and equip ourselves. And of course, as I've already said, I'm grateful to the contribution that the developed world is making towards technical capacity building for us, and as well as the contribution towards helping us in developing infrastructure. One very important thing that I want to share with you, and that has nothing much to do with this workshop, is I feel very strongly a part of Lahore College. As I've already said, I'm an old student, and just like you when I was there, We weren't informed of the stuff that I'm going to tell you about. Trust me, the world is controlled by women. If you're not aware of that, and if anyone makes you believe otherwise, please retort to that. Most of the stuff that you need to help us, the Environmental Protection Agency and Department, women can be the major contributors. We're going to celebrate, the entire world is going to celebrate Environment Day or Earth Day on the 5th of June, and I think this year the theme is we need to work against plastics. I look around myself and we see plastics everywhere. Trust me, our rural landscape is completely ruined by the introduction of two forms of plastics, one plastic bags and two diapers. I don't need to tell you, you're already aware that these two things can be eliminated by us, women. I hope you know what I mean. Trust me, the entire stuff that is other than this is biodegradable. So I tell you, each step that us women take can help towards betterment of an environment. One. Secondly, I was very disappointed when I saw that Dr. Sabah shared with me that we have 350 students in BSc and MSc, as well as I think maybe 30 students in PhD. I expected some questions to come up after the presentation. We did not receive any questions. So please see to it that you are the future. We need to rely on your scientific understanding, your knowledge base, and that you need to develop by very, very seriously working on it. So please don't take it, you know, girls of our society, it's very hard to admit, but they're overly aware of their social responsibilities and very, very poorly informed of the fact that their first responsibility is towards themselves. And by that I mean you develop yourself professionally. And by developing yourself professionally, I mean you develop yourself academically. And the whole college should not be behind anyone or any other leading university. I hope to see some of you here in future. Young ladies, kindly leave everything aside, because this is what our future means to us. I, as Director General Environmental Protection Agency, would not be able to do much. It's you who is going to take over. I would be here for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 months. That's all. Sustainability is working every day and responding to everything that you are being told. I've already requested Dr. Sabah to share the recordings of the sessions that you will have in this today and tomorrow. I want to improve myself. It's your job, so kindly do it. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Sajid Rashid, Vice Chancellor, University of Bukhara, for his remarks.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much. And I am really glad that Lahore College University organized this workshop, and all credit goes to the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Bushra Mirza, that she took the initiative to get the female environmentalist for this project, and I congratulate Professor Dr. Arfat Taher that she is taking the leading role for this project in Pakistan. Congratulations to Lahore College University team all. And I also encourage all the students of the environmental sciences that you should ask a lot of questions to the panelists, because we are here to share the knowledge. So we will also learn from your questions, and you will also learn from the presentations. And so I encourage after the tea in technical session, you should ask the question, because no question is a stupid question, because yesterday professor asked that this is a stupid question, because all questions are the stupid. But when you will get the answer, then you have the knowledge about that. So it's my advice to you, and I am very thankful, and this is a great, I have a great pleasure that now academia have the linkage with the environmental department. And this is the first time that Secretary Dr. Sajid Chauhan and the DG both are here, and the Director Naseemur Rahman, and I'm also seeing the team of the environmental department. They all are here in the university, in academic department, because we organize 3 international conferences in University of the Punjab in emerging trends of environment. And either secretary or DG or director, but I didn't see the whole team, and this is the it's showing me the commitment of the secretary and the DG, that they are eager to work with the academia. So therefore I encourage all my professors and students that we should have a consortium like University of the Punjab, Lahore College, Women University, Canadian College, GC University in environmental sciences, and we should have the collaboration with the environmental department. Like Punjab University, we have the project with the environmental department about the brick lanes, and I hope environmental department, they did a lot, and all the brick lanes are in a zigzag technology, and it is not an easy job. Therefore, I wish that we should collaborate all, and climate change is a very, very big problem, not only for the world, but Pakistan is suffering a lot from this. I will not take more time, because we have a shortage of time. So I also welcome all our foreign delegation, and we hope that we should have a good collaboration with the North Carolina University, with the universities of the Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to now request Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, Lahore College of Women University, and Secretary EPD to kindly come forward for souvenir distribution.
Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Lewis Owen, Head of Marine, Earth and Atmospheric Science Department, North Carolina State University, to receive souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, LCW.
Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Walter Robinson to receive souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, Lahore College of Women University.
Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Paul Liu to receive souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, LCW. I would like to request Professor Dr. Kylie Evans to receive souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, LCW.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Stacey Zan to receive a souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, LCW, Vice Chancellor, LCW. Now I would like to invite Ms. Lucia Menishal-Redner to come forward and receive a souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, LCW.
Now I would like to request Professor Dr. Sajid Rashid to receive souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, LCW. Now I would like to request Secretary Environment to receive souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, LCW.
Now I would like to invite DG DPD Punjab Ms. Nadia Saqib to come forward and receive a souvenir from Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, Vice Chancellor, LCW.
Now I would request our worthy Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Bushra Mirza, to receive the souvenir from Secretary Environment